We're glad to welcome you back to another episode of Notes from the North. This is episode 18. This is part two of a two-part series we've been doing with some top three lists. If you haven't checked out the first episode, make sure to check that out. It doesn't matter. You can do it before or after. There's not real tie in between the two episodes, but we do have the same guest. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Kyle and Cole.
Welcome to Notes from the North with Kyle and Sam.
Well, we'd like to welcome everyone back. This is part two of our top three lists, and as promised, this is going to be a little more positive, a little more encouraging. People will be a little bit more pleasant, happy memories, good memories. So what we're going to do, we've only got two downs actually this week. We're going to start it off with the top three all-time favorite Vikings players. This is going to be fun. So Cole, we're going to turn it over to you again. You can start at number 3 on your list.
Honestly, I'd probably put Adrian Peterson at number 3 on that. So they're all pretty interchangeable, but I mean, we sucked for so long. Offense, was kind of in a weird funk between Randy Moss leaving and Peterson arriving. And that just kind of spurned like a new era of team. And he was so exciting, didn't matter what the passing game was doing or wasn't doing. I mean, he could literally carry the team on his back. He did that several times throughout the years, but especially 2012, where he drug a Christian Ponder led team to the playoffs. And so that was pretty remarkable. So yeah, I'd say 3 is good for Peterson in my book. So
he gave us an identity, like he gave us an offensive identity, and not one that no one's going to say that like having, so Adrian Peterson's an all-time great running back. I mean, obviously it's not the same as having an all-time great quarterback. So it maybe wasn't the most effective identity necessarily. It's not like having Patrick Mahomes, but we knew who we were at that point. We have an elite running back and we're going to ground and pound. And you knew that anytime he touched the ball, like dude could take it to the house.
Yeah. It was crazy. I don't know if you ever went to the Metrodome when he played for a game, but I mean, every time he touched the ball, you could feel everybody kind of hold their breath at the same time, just waiting, for the next crazy highlight run. And usually he was good for 3 or 4 a game, or he'd take, a 2-yard loss and kind of pound his way for a 5-yard gain. And it was like, that's one of the best runs I've seen all week. So yeah, he was definitely the identity and stuff up until Favre arrived, and then he continued to be the identity after that. So
that's right.
Yeah. As an outsider, I remember watching him, and just like that was what I associated. Like the Minnesota Vikings were Adrian Peterson for the years that he was there. Like that was like I wasn't watching the Vikings games, but I just remember watching highlights, and like I just remember watching him, and I can even just imagine his stride as he just like broke down the sideline towards the end zone, and just like watching some of these games where putting up 200 plus yards, and just like, man, this guy is like unstoppable.
Freakishly good.
It was insane. Combination of power and size and speed that was unrivaled.
Kyle, what do you have for number 3?
I actually can't believe that I'm putting him at 3. When I first started brainstorming, I thought, okay, this is like for sure my number 1, but I thought of 2 that I like more. But Jared Allen, I mean, they made the trade with Kansas City for Allen, and they gave up a fair amount for him, but that was one where I think it worked for both sides. So I think KC got 1 and 2 threes, and I think there were some late round picks somewhere in there. But in any case, I think one of those thirds turned into Jamal Charles, who himself was an excellent running back for several years. So smooth, just glide, just such an elegant runner. But Jared Allen was an elite defensive end in Minnesota for a lot of years, for like 6 years, I think. And then I think he was in Chicago for a bit afterwards, and maybe 1 or 2 other spots. But in any case, I played defensive end in high school. Loved, like when I was playing defensive ends, Jared Allen was the defensive end kind of thing for the Vikings, and one of the preeminent ones in the NFL as a whole. So he's my number 3 all time, and I just so wish he would have gotten the Strahan record. But I can remember the end of that game when he has. So I think he's sitting at 22 sacks. I think the record's 22.5. They were like double and triple teaming him. It was wild. It was so wild. Jared Allen.
Yeah, it was a meaningless game. Too.
It was, exactly.
And we were 3-13. We were 3-13, so it wasn't like we were playing with leads that whole year.
Exactly.
And he was just dominant and everything. It was a testament to him as a player to be that talented, but then to just have that motor for a season that was going nowhere from the get-go.
Yep.
So totally agree with that. So
excellent.
Very good. Cole, what do you got for number 2?
Well, I'm gonna say Jared Allen. I didn't want to talk too much over Kyle, but yeah, Jared Allen is definitely up there. So when Adrian Peterson brought an offensive identity to us in 07, Jared Allen coming in 08, that gave us a defensive identity. We were already really good against stopping the run.
Yeah.
With Kevin and Pat Williams, and Pat Williams was a run stuffer. Kevin Williams could do all of it, but Jared Allen just brought a personality, a swagger, to the defense, and led us to the playoffs in 08 and everything. And that especially the back half of 08 really fueled momentum towards 2009 and everything. So he's easily on there. You probably remember the 2012 Thursday night game against the Buccaneers when Jared Allen and Donald Penn got into it. And me and my dad were watching TV. We're like, Jared Allen's so mad right now.
Yeah.
And he's going to do something. And there are multiple timeouts and there's a fight. And they called, this, that, and the other. Jared Allen's amped up. And very next play, he, gets a sack on 3rd down. Thought it changed the momentum of the game, and then Christian Ponder and the offense went 3 and out. But it was awesome, and
the real trail off there.
Yeah. But I loved the energy he played with, and that's why I rooted for the Panthers in 2015 in the Super Bowl against the Broncos. Because he actually joined Carolina late that season, and that Super Bowl loss that ended up being the last game of his career. So that was the only reason I really pulled for Carolina that much that night. So, yeah,
he's a good one. He is he's so good. I know you're doing the Hall of Fame series, and Jared Allen is worthy of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
Precisely. Yeah, precisely.
Wish he would have made it this year.
Yep. Number 2 for me, Sam.
Yeah, what do you got?
Antoine Winfield. I love Antoine Winfield. He just played corner the right way. Never the biggest or anything like that. And I think, I can't remember when he started with the Vikings.
04.
There you go. Sorry. No, not at all.
Encyclopedic mind.
I was telling Sam, I said, like, Cole knows way more about the Vikings and their history than me, like way more. And so that's good. Just boom. And Winfield was just so physical. I thought he was just perfect for the Minnesota Vikings. Loved him. Absolutely loved him. And so he's, the number 1 for me is, well, I'll get there in a moment, but I thought about Jim Kleinsasser, I thought about Kevin and Pat Williams. I thought about a number of different folks, even Steve Hutchinson, because I long for the days of really good guard play.
Yeah.
I've almost become like,
I heard those guys can actually be effective.
Right. Exactly. They actually do exist.
Yeah.
But Antoine Winfield, that's going to be my number 2.
Yeah.
Because the physicality.
He was up there in the running for me. Because there were games. I always felt he was underrated. Yep. He could take games over. There's a Saints Monday night game in 08. Walked a punt, ran it back, forced a fumble. Panthers game earlier that year where he had like a strip sack for a touchdown. I mean, he played like he was one of the biggest guys on the field.
Yes.
Even though he was, one of the smallest guys on the field, he take on offensive linemen and everything. So definitely worthy of being in the top three. So
Huh. That's neat. Cole,
Are you before
go
I?
ahead.
So
Yeah.
I was gonna. Are you a fan of his son? Or do you?
I do like his son.
Yeah.
I wish we would have gotten him and
I
everything.
know. Me
So
too. Yeah.
and I don't hate Tom Brady, so I don't hate Tampa Bay
Fair
and
enough.
everything. So I appreciate the way his son plays.
Excellent. Me too. I'm in total agreement. I was so happy to see him win, and I was totally fine with him taunting Tyreek Hill. I was like,
Yeah.
that's all right. Yeah.
And I also love Antoine Winfield Sr. He was taunting the Saints fans when Tampa Bay beat New Orleans in the playoffs. So it's nice that he's not over that game either.
Nope.
These are the things when you're not in the finals, you got to make connections with those who are there and
Exactly.
Yep.
cheer for those moments. Yeah. Cole, ready for your number one now. I was wondering if any of the players that Kyle listed off previously are there, if you got someone else there at number one.
I'm gonna go with Randy Moss on this one.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Like I said, moving up to Minnesota in '98, that was his rookie season. Just completely changed. Another guy just changed the identity of the team. We were a really good offensive team, but he put us over the top. What he did to open things up for everybody. I mean, he made Dante Culpepper. Culpepper was good, but with Culpepper's long ball, made him look really good. Made Randall Cunningham look really, really good to resurrect his career. Jeff George, Todd Bauman looked good for a while. Gus Frerotte looked really, really good for a while. I mean, he could just change a game in a snap. I mean, when he was on, it was super fun to watch, especially being that young. Moss was, he was the guy that every Vikings fan looked up to and everything. So, and then I thought that he would come along and do better in 2010, but that season did not go too great. But it was still cool to see him catch a pass from a couple touchdowns from Favre in purple. So, yeah, I think Moss is easily number one for me.
That's fair. I mean, I don't know if anyone could reasonably say that Randy Moss is the best receiver. Jerry Rice is the best receiver in NFL history.
It's Jerry Rice.
But if you were to say who's the most gifted,
it's Moss.
Receiver, it's Randy Moss, right? It's Randy
yeah.
Moss. And
yeah.
So that makes total sense. Like, he is just freakishly gifted.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I could have seen him like actually play at my first game I ever went to in 2004. We played the Titans, but he had, I don't know if anybody remembers, the week before Moss had pulled his hamstring against the Saints on Monday Night Football. So he came in for like 2 plays against the Titans. And so, I kind of watched him, but he just kind of lined up just to keep his starting streak going. And then he was inactive for a few games after that. So,
right.
Yeah.
Cole, your memory is impressive. This is that was 17 years ago, and that was
some people call it impressive, some people call it sad. So I like that somebody appreciates it.
You are among a group of people who consider it very impressive.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that the obviously the memories of Randy Moss, especially as a child, like kind of those first years, I like my favorite athletes on different teams that I've cheered for over the years are definitely those that I grew up that were that inspiration starting to watch. So that makes sense, and especially a very good player in Randy Moss. Yeah.
Came along at the perfect time for me, I think. So
yeah. Yep. Kyle,
do you know who it is, Sam?
I got guesses, but I don't know.
Number one, it's not Kirk Cousins, though I do like Cousins.
He's my number one.
Yeah, that's right. Harrison Smith. I love Harrison Smith.
Huh.
Everything. Like, I love the way he carries himself, just a quiet confidence. I was looking into his stuff recently, wrote a little bit about him. I didn't realize this till just like a day or two ago. Past 2 years, he's played without any guaranteed money at all on his contract. This is the third straight year without any guaranteed money at all. I mean, this dude just has continued to be elite. Never hear a word of anything at all. He's always healthy. He's always available. He's always leading by example, and he can do anything. On like when I was looking at PFF, their breakdown last year, I mean, he had like 85 snaps on the D line. He had several hundred in the box. He had several hundred in the slot. He had several hundred free safety. I think he had 30 or 40 out wide at corner. He literally played. I mean, if you want to clump D line altogether, like he wasn't playing like one technique, like
Right.
Pat Williams back in the day, but he literally played every position on the defense. I admire the way he handles himself on and off the field. I admire the way he approaches the game, just the physicality, the aggressiveness, and I admire the way that he brings this versatility. I would argue with anybody who says that he's not the best safety of the past decade. I think most national folks would say Earl Thomas, and I would say they're 100% wrong.
Yeah.
Because Smith is still doing it, and at such a high level, and he's so quiet, underrated because of one, his personality, and two, Seattle as a team has had more success. But Harrison Smith, to me, is the gold standard for safety play over the past 10 years, and hopefully for at least 2, 3, or 4 more. So Harrison Smith, my number one overall Viking.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I love Harrison Smith. So, like you said, he plays all over the field, disrupts a run game behind the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
Interceptions. Yeah. I mean, he does it all. So, a little surprised he's number one. That doesn't mean mean that it's not worthy of being number one. So,
they traded up to get him 29th overall. They made that move with Baltimore, I think.
Yeah.
And so, man, that was worth it. And I remember being excited, thinking, I can remember Adrian Peterson early on saying, this dude has got some fight in him. He's physical, he's aggressive. And so I remember thinking, if Adrian Peterson says that this dude is aggressive and physical, because Adrian Peterson is aggressive and physical. Right. So if he's acknowledging that in somebody else, it must be true. And it has gone on to be true.
Yeah, I remember I went to the draft party that year up at the Metrodome, and we selected Matt Khalil.
Yep.
And of course, everybody's like, "Oh, there's our franchise left tackle for our franchise quarterback." But so everybody's just kind of watching. It's starting to wind down. And we traded back into the first round.
Yep.
And everybody got super stoked. And then all the people working at the Metrodome were like, "Yeah, you guys have to leave now." So we're like, "What?" And phones weren't quite as good back then, so we had to wait till we got to the vehicles and got onto the radio to find out that we had selected Harrison Smith. So there's some poor planning at the Metrodome in that one. So
no kidding.
Pointless story that nobody cares about.
No, that's interesting. I can't believe that they booted you out, because I assume you paid to go to that.
Yeah, there was. I mean, it wasn't a ton of people left. But I mean, there was a decent amount of people left. It wasn't like it was just me there, just hogging the TV and refusing to leave. So
sitting down cross-legged right by the TV. Yeah.
That I would have understood, but there were several people there. So,
Kyle, I wonder if you're able to differentiate. But like, I feel like that idea of like a homegrown player, like someone that you drafted and then sticking around, like I feel like that adds to a player's specialness with a franchise and like with a fan base.
To a certain extent it does. I think for me, I mean Jared Allen, we traded for him and then he played for a team after. I still love him, and Antoine Winfield didn't play his whole career with us. A lot of great Vikings haven't spent their entire career in Minnesota, but I remember I've been excited about Smith from the beginning. Like I remember being excited about when they drafted him, and I don't think I've ever not loved his play and loved what he's brought to this team. He's excellent. Like if we had 11 Harrison Smiths over there, game over, right? Like he's a great player.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I remember when we drafted him, everyone's like, well, he didn't have any interceptions his last year at Notre Dame, and then he had like 2 pick sixes as a rookie, and from there. But like you said, he's quiet, so he's often overlooked.
Exactly.
And that affects all pros, and all pros affect Hall of Fame.
Yep.
I feel like he might end up getting screwed a little bit in the long haul, kind of like Kevin Williams. But yeah, so
That's interesting.
We'll see. Yeah.
The quietness actually, I think, is like just a really valuable part with a league that has so many loud voices. To have someone who is talented while also is quiet. Obviously, you want leaders, but I think sometimes people can be too vocal, and so having someone like that, especially in a position such as that safety position, to have that kind of persona is special.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll transition here down to second down, and we in the last episode talked about our top 3 Vikings heartbreaking moments, and so we wanted to flip the coin and talk a little bit about the top 3 all-time best Vikings moments. So these are the highlights. These are the best. And so Kyle, why don't you start us off this time?
Okay, so this is, admittedly, I'm kind of cheating here, but I kind of felt like I needed to get it in there. This isn't even a Vikings moment, and maybe this just is going to show how petty I am. But I kind of, as a Vikings fan, this is one of my all-time favorite football moments, and it's because I'm a Vikings fan I feel this way. It's the Roby Coleman hit on Lewis from a couple years ago in 2018.
Yes.
God bless that horrible ref. That was like, if you said, I don't know how you'd ever prove this, but if you said to me that was the worst call or non-call in NFL history, I could believe it. I wouldn't fight it. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, that was just like the most egregious PI you could ever see. And I couldn't have been more happy to see it go against the Saints. The fact that, I can still picture Sean Payton freaking out on the sidelines, the fans, of course, it's in New Orleans, which is perfect. Like, the whole thing was just amazing. And then they had to kick a field goal. They're up at this point. Jared Goff, is a lousy quarterback. He marches the Rams down the field. They tie it up 23-23 or something like that. And then in overtime, Breeze gets hit, throws the interception. The Rams go back and end up winning. And the Rams should have never really had much of a chance. I guess if the Saints could score a touchdown, maybe the Rams will score a touchdown, maybe go to the overtime and something similar happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I really believe if the Saints score that touchdown there, it's probably game over. Just because I'm not confident in Jared Goff, personally.
Yeah.
Maybe McVay makes it up for him. But that missed call, I think, kept the Rams in it and sent them to the Super Bowl. It's one of my all-time favorite NFL football moments.
Well, that's not my top 3, but I love what you're thinking. They would have kicked a field goal to end the game if they had gotten the first down, because the Rams just have the timeouts.
Sure,
that's what it would have been. It wouldn't have been for the touchdown. Loved it. I had the same reaction as you.
Yep.
So if I had to do something like that, it would have actually been the Packers losing to the Seahawks in the NFC Championship for that level of pettiness.
Yes, right. Okay, I'm with you now. Yeah.
But I definitely see where you're coming from.
So the Saints would have been able to run down the clock and 100% win it.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
that's what
it's even better now.
It's even better. A touchdown. Yeah.
It was a virtual
it was right
guarantee.
there for the taking.
This is like a next level pettiness that's going on here. And for those listening, Kyle was talking and Cole was fist pumping as Kyle was talking about these details. Like, this is
I'm not even embarrassed. Like, I couldn't think of a better team for that sort of thing to happen to than the Saints. I love it.
It was great at the Superdome. Yeah,
exactly. In New Orleans, the scene of the crime. Friggin' right.
Cole, we need you to save the segment. What's your number 3?
My number 3, it's probably the Vikings Bears game, 2008 Sunday Night Football. I was at this game with my dad, and Vikings and Bears. It was starting to become evident because this was late November. There was kind of a 2-team race for the division. So the Bears are up 7-3. They get down to our 1-yard line, and our seats are right down the line. We're at the 2-yard line watching this, and first down, incompletion. Second down, stuff the Bears. Third down, place is rocking. This is the old Metrodome. It was kind of a dump, but that place can get loud. And we stuff them again. Before fourth down, the noise raised a whole other octave. Me and my dad, it was so noticeable. Me and my dad looked at each other like, can you believe this? And we stuffed them. Instead of being 14-3, we're only down 7-3. Very next play, Gus Farrat finds Bernard Berrien for a 99-yard touchdown.
Yes.
And place went wild. I mean, nobody sat down for at least 20 minutes. And we ended up rolling them that game, ended up winning the division. And I think that game kind of started, like I said earlier, that momentum rolling into 2009, like, well, we could be a really, really good team. And I think like Kevin Williams and back then, or one of them, I'm pretty sure it was Kevin Williams, was like, give us an inch of grass to defend and we'll defend it. And I mean, that was like the ultimate. I mean, that was when nobody ran on the Vikings. So awesome moment to be there for.
I distinctly remember the Bernard Berrien 99-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
And my expectation was that in 2009, Bernard Berrien was really going to thrive. Instead, Sidney Rice,
Yep.
Percy Harvin ended up being sensational. But I distinctly remember that. Yeah.
Great moment. So
Yeah, and special to be there.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. So
Cole, how many games have you been to?
I lost count. We went in 04 for the first time, and then missed games in 05 and 06. And since 07, we've gone to at least one game every year, except for last season, of course.
Good for you. Yeah, right.
So,
of course. Yeah.
So close enough to Minneapolis to be able to get to quite a few. And then we went down to Kansas City in 2019 when we played the Chiefs and should have won that game. We forced 2 fumbles at the end of the game, but didn't get it. So had to witness a game-winning field goal and the home crowd cheering all around me. So, but their fans are cool. Probably a lot better than your Patriots.
Yeah, sure.
Experience, so.
Right. I was gonna ask the same question as Kyle. That's cool. I know one of Kyle's bucket list items was to get down to a game at some point. So definitely hope. Kyle, what do you got for number 2?
Number 2 for me, I'm sure Cole remembers it well. Week 3, 2009 against San Francisco, Greg Lewis. I mean, just coming out of nowhere, he hadn't done anything, and just the whole progression of the play of, it's no timeouts. I don't think we had any timeouts left. Getting down to the very, very end, final seconds, Favre rolling to his right, eluding pressure. He gets hit after he throws on the ground. This whole thing, Greg Lewis, I can hear Paul Allen's voice, Greg Lewis, the 2 feet. The whole thing was magical, and that was when I really, I was watching with some friends at a friend's basement, and of course I'm the only Vikings fan there, and I'm telling everybody how good Minnesota is, and no one's believing me. And we win that game, and that's when it's like, all right, like we got something here. We got something. That was such a magical moment. That to me is for sure top 3.
Honestly, that was my number 2.
Wow. Okay. Excellent.
Because Favre was brought in, and even he admitted later on, I'm just here, hand off to Adrian, throw it when I have to.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's what it was for those first 2 games against the Browns and Lions. And then that game, we had it was a back and forth, blocked field goal for a touchdown. Percy Harvin ran a touchdown. It was this crazy game. And then, it was that final drive, no timeouts. And Favre ran us down the field. And, once Greg Lewis caught that pass, it was the same thing. It was like, okay, this might actually be something this year. And then, the identity completely switched from run first. And then from that moment on, it was Favre's team. And the next week, he lit up the Packers on Monday Night Football. So, yeah, easily that moment. I mean, I was at a sports bar with my dad watching it, and other Vikings fans were all losing our minds and stuff. So, yeah, easily that one for me.
Awesome. So I think we're gonna have the same, probably number 1 as well.
I was gonna say it's fun that you guys actually have the same ones. Like, I know, like it means there's not as many memories brought up, but I think that the fact that and Kyle wasted one on a nod.
I didn't waste
Vikings.
it. That's a good one, Sam.
I'm just joking. I actually love that you brought that up. But I actually think it's cool that you guys actually have the same ones. Cole, who was a bigger Vikings fan, you or your dad?
It's me.
Yeah.
He'd admit it. Everybody would admit it. I haven't actually come across anybody who's a bigger fan than me. So that, I'm sure a lot of people say that, but I'm sure everybody else can vouch for that statement. So
it sounds like he's a little bit of a partner in crime for you, though, in terms of watching.
I watch every game. He just doesn't follow it 24/7 like me.
Yeah.
So
That's fun.
Get pretty animated.
That's fun. So Kyle, number one,
Minnesota Miracle. I mean, it's how could it not be? It's the roller coaster ride. It's against this team that, I mean, if I get excited about, the PI call or the missed PI call in a Rams Saints game, think about how I felt when it's the Vikings doing it, right? And beating them. And not just, I mean, I would have been ecstatic if Stephon Diggs caught that ball, went out of bounds, we kicked a field goal, and we ended up winning in overtime. I would have been just like over the moon. Like that Stephon Diggs catching that ball, stepping out of bounds, stopping the clock would have been an A+ play. It would have been, without question. But to do it in that moment, and I have nothing against the young man personally, but for the safety to miss, I do feel bad for him as a person. I don't want him to, I'm sure he heard all kinds of things from fans. Fans can be brutal, especially on social media. But just when the Saints lose in heartbreaking fashion, it brings me joy. I don't even know what to tell you. Like, I hate the Saints, and for them to lose, I feel bad that a player who wasn't connected to the 2009 team, I'm sure, had a miserable offseason. I'm sure folks said things to him that are inexcusable, but I love that the Saints lost in horrible fashion and that the Vikings won in the most spectacular way you could ever imagine. I mean, that is among the all-time great playoff moments in NFL history, without question. It's just sensational. Is that your number one? Is that your number one, Cole?
Yeah, it was tough for me. No,
right.
It was that's by far number one. Like I said, I was at the game, and you're thinking the same thing. Like, got to get out of bounds.
Exactly.
From where I was sitting or standing at that point, you're looking. Saints are defending the boundary. You're like, man, they're not going to let us get a field goal here.
Yeah.
So fleeting moment through my head, I'm thinking 2008 Michael Crabtree against Texas, tiptoeing the sideline to win a touchdown. I was like, that's the only way we're going to win this. People forget Jarius Wright was wide open like a play earlier in case missed him. I don't know if he would have scored, but I felt like that was our chance. I was super, super upset. And, but yeah, they always show that play in slow motion. But I remember being there and grabbing the people next to me like, oh my gosh, it felt like it happened, in a snap.
Yeah.
It was one of the most surreal moments of my life, walking out of the stadium, high-fiving everybody. Nobody left their seats for a half hour. Everybody's singing Sweet Caroline and Don't Stop Believing. And Paul Allen's call kept going round and round, and players are crying. It was crazy. I thought, we don't have to go about the week following, but by far that's number one. So I don't think many people argue that one.
No. Is that the pinnacle sports fandom moment for you?
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily. So yeah, that was, especially to be there and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
like that just raised the bar exponentially there. And like for you to be there, and for Kyle, this is like the best of both worlds. You get to see watch the Saints suffer and the Vikings succeed. Like, this is special for both of you for different reasons.
Exactly. Yeah.
The question
there's definitely some revenge there. It didn't completely wipe
No.
away 2009, but it did feel it felt that much sweeter that it was the Saints.
Yeah.
Do you think, Cole, is it the Minnesota Miracle or the Minneapolis Miracle?
Minneapolis Miracle. That's
all right.
That's how I always say it. That's how Paul Allen said it. So
fair enough.
But, yeah. So
Paul Allen, voice of the Vikings. It's hard to disagree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sounds better. I like the way it rolls off.
Minneapolis or Minnesota?
Minneapolis.
All right. I always go for the less syllables, but I mean, far be it from me to disagree with Paul Allen. So
yeah. Oh, well, this is great. This is a lot of fun. This has been a blast. I don't know if you guys have any last thoughts before we wrap up.
No, just honestly, Cole, we really appreciate you taking the time for us. It does mean a lot to both of us.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
this has been great. Yeah, Cole, we just want to extend our sincere thanks to you and coming on Notes from the North. And listeners, I guess, can find your work at the Vikings Gazette and Last Word on Sports. And Cole can also be found on Twitter at Skull Smith. Cole, anything else listeners should know about you, or anything else you want to plug?
Not really. I mean, you kind of got the plugs and everything. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been fun to relive the highs and the lows of being a Vikings fan. So it's hard to explain it to fans who are not fans of the team. So
Yep.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Cole.
You're among friends. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.